I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9, and today I do the impossible by linking applied energistics to our current refined storage system. And we also get to autocrafting with Gregtech tools. Hopefully you guys are ready. Today in All the Mods 9, I do the unthinkable. I'm going to link together refined storage with applied energistics, and we're going to get applied energistics set up so that way we can autocraft successfully with Gregtech stuff. Oh boy. Now this is going to require a huge amount of prep work, as I essentially am going to have to set up refined storage to fill items into a chest or what have you, all kinds of items. And now this is going to be a huge project to actually do. And that's not even touching the thing that is Gregtech. Well, we're going to be playing with it just a little bit, but first things first, we actually need to set up an applied energistics system, and we need to build one that is quite large and also has autocrafting capabilities. So if we head back to the so lovely base, we can take a look at what we're actually already using as far as an applied energistics system goes. Well, this is our main storage unit. This is the refined storage monstrosity that is over here, but we do have access using refined storage to autocraft using extended inscribers, which can do 4 processes at once. And I do have all of these recipes set to 4 processes per operation. And so each time it does request, it will send that amount in here. That's pretty cool. And that means we can actually autocraft just about anything that uses these presses or uses these circuits. We can go ahead and autocraft everything. And so that's going to make that a whole lot easier. We don't have to worry about doing this whole process or anything like that. And we also have creative power for this. So that's another thing that we already have going for us. So that means we get to use some really fancy tools that are a part of the extended AE mod. Oh, and I cannot wait, without the limitations of the power, because those mods do have a huge power requirement. Now, with just a little bit of autocrafting out of the way, I should now be able to request, for example, a controller. So we are going to, I think, need 49 of these to make the max size, which I believe is a 7x7 cube, but you can also have more controller components in the center point. But yes, this should be able to craft very quickly. We can see how quickly this actually can craft all of these individual processors using that extended AE that we set up several episodes ago. So now building out this center sort of frame, it is a 7x7 cube like I had mentioned. And I did go a little bit higher up here than down below, so that way we had this nice walking space to walk through this thing. Now, as soon as I plug this controller in, this is a connected multi-block, but it's not powered just yet. And that's where you can actually fill in these center parts to connect the whole multi-block. And I think what I'm going to do is right in the center, I'm going to put that creative power. So now that I have my creative energy cell from the All the Mods Star, we can place that in, and this should jumpstart. Oh, the RGB. It is so bright and obnoxious. I still don't know if I should take this one higher, as I still think that might look a little bit better, but ultimately, yeah, I think I'm going to bring this up just one more and have the base here just touching the bottom. There we go. That looks a little bit better, all raised up like that. Perfect. Okay, so now that I have my exoskeleton and I have all of these channels, which is exactly what an ME controller is. This thing right here, basically every face of this controller, every side of all of these faces contain 32 channels. Now, it does even mention in the quest that technically, if you were to get into Gregtech and you were to use applied energistics, that it says, hey, if you want to, just disable channels. I'm going to try my best to go through it with channels, and I'm gonna also kind of explain how we are going to utilize all of these channels and connections in this area for this. And yes, that does mean dabbling a little bit with peer-to-peer. And I tell you, it's not as hard as it looks. Now, I don't have any cables hooked up to this yet, but I do want to go ahead and get the autocrafting infrastructure set up. And to be able to autocraft with applied energistics, even though we just have this basic setup going, we can get away with it by simply placing, for example, one crafting storage, no matter what size it is. I'm just using 64K because they're really easy for me to craft at this point. And then I'm actually going to use 4 co-processing units on one 64K storage, and we are going to have 8 of these individually. So I plan on having one here, one here, and so on and so forth. This whole bridging thing is probably going to disappear because I actually want to have these semi-floating. Ultimately, I do have a design in my head for this. Oh, it's going to turn out so good. You know what might actually look even better is if I was to, for example, place down one of the crafting storages and then do a co-processing unit and do the co-processing unit down here with the crafting and then just build this up. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have this storage down here. And you can see the multi-block does complete, but it's going to keep one taller than the other. And I think that might look really good. Sneakily good, actually. So take a look at these. These are going to look so nice, sort of floating here. Well, I'm going to have cables hooked to them, so that's going to kind of take a bit of that illusion away. But now that we have our crafting coprocessors, we need the thing that actually crafts things. And that is going to be our extended pattern providers. Now, this might be a bit overkill. I am going to be using 4, and I do have more than 16 of all of these coprocessors. I ended up actually doubling it. So we do have a lot of like things that could be individually craft all at any given moment. But I'm going to be using something new. This is going to be Extended AE's extended pattern provider and also extended molecular assembler. Now, if you were to set up AE just normal, you would use a normal pattern provider, and you would also use a normal molecular assembler in this exact same format that I'm about to set this up in. So how am I going to set this up? Well, I'm actually going to zigzag the pattern. This is how I have done it since the new version of AE, and I personally like this method. So we are going to build a 2x2 that is going to go vertically, and we are going to change our pattern as we go up, and we're going to go up 4 blocks. So anytime I have a molecular assembler, I'm going to place a pattern provider on it, and then just keep flip-flopping just like this until we have ourselves a crafting rectangle. Yeah, this thing. So now that I have all of my crafters set up and ready to go, it's now time to kind of hook these in. Now, these are going to take up 8 channels, and this is where I get to explain the fun of channels. So I have a couple of different colors here. I have white dense cables. I also have some black dense cables. Now, something to note that regular cables, for example, this regular Fluix cable will connect to everything. So if I have myself right here a black cable and I have myself a white cable, these two will not connect together. But if I have myself a black and white cable, much like this connected here, and I place in a Fluix cable in between them, notice this will connect to all colors. So the Fluix cables will connect regardless, whereas these black and white cables are different colored cables that aren't Fluix. These will actually separate. And so that's a really nice thing to know. So I am going to be using black and white cables down here, and I'm going to be branching off of the side of here with the black, keeping the white cables running down the middle here. And I think that's going to be pretty nice. And it's going to look very, very good whenever we go to start sending this elsewhere. So how am I going to utilize this? Well, by default, one of these dense cables, dense specifically, will carry the 32 channels off. And we can see that up at the very top, you see 0 of 32 channels. But if I was to go to a regular smart cable, or even a covered cable, these can only carry 8 channels. So this now says it has 0 of 8 channels available. But that does mean that you still have a total of 32 that you can use. You just now need to branch off of this particular cable. You need to branch it off 4 times in order to get a set of 8 separate channels, or 4 sets of 8 off of the regular smart cables. That's the best way I can explain cables. And later on, we can actually just remotely grab a 32 set of more channels using the other method that I mentioned before. That being those peer-to-peer tunnels. But we'll get into that some other time. For right now, we just need to simply separate our cables out here. So if I'm going to run a set of these black cables down here, well, actually, these are Fluix cables. Let's actually get those out of my inventory so I don't mix them all up together. So if we are running these through, these only take 1 channel, believe it or not. Even though they're a multi-block, they actually only take 1 channel. So that's pretty nice because we can just hook right into the bottom here. And you see it says device online. And that means this entire section can technically be powered off of this. This is only using up 2 of our available 8 channels, which is kind of hard to see, but there you go. So now we have 2 of 8. But what we'll run into a problem is if I try to hook this, for example, into this set, we'll notice that this no longer is working because this right here says it shouldn't be working anyways. This device online, but it should be using up more channels than we actually have available to us. Let me look. Yeah. Aha. This is where we see it's not currently working because up here, this says device missing channel. It doesn't appear that it shut off the entire network, which is what I'm used to seeing happen. But we can see up here that these do not actually have the ability to run because we're missing those 2 channels. So perfect. I now have all of the Autocrafting infrastructure ready to go, but we still have yet to technically access our applied energistic system. That's right, because we don't have any storage methods in this just yet. So in reality, we just built a bunch of machines that are doing nothing because we have no way of controlling what they're going to do. And that's where I'm going to introduce refined storage into the mix. And we should be able to set up a storage system that is going to contain the items that we are going to need. Now, we probably also want to get some sort of storage in here that is going to contain, for example, all of the tools from Gregtech that I want to use for autocrafting. But this right here should get us by. Down here is where I want to set up. And I'm still debating whether or not I'm going to use like a drawer system or exactly what I'm going to use. Okay, so I think I figured out exactly how I'm going to do this. Now, believe it or not, these are actually 2x2 framed functional storage drawers. And I'm going to use a storage controller right here in the center that is going to be connected to the refined storage network. But AE is also going to be connected to it. So that's something to keep in mind. This is going to be kind of an interesting thing to have set up. But essentially, I'm going to have exporters that are going to be sending ingredients that are going to propagate the framed drawers here. And then we can use applied energistics to actually read those things as well using a storage bus. So we will need an extractor. Now I think with a refined storage, if we do, I think we do have, oh no, it's exporter. I believe we have these really, really nice exporters, I think, that have a bunch of slots. This is probably gonna be the thing I need to use. Now, this is gonna be the perfect example for a feature that Buzz actually recently added to functional storage, and I am pretty excited about this. And that is we can actually increase the range of our storage. For example, I can put a diamond upgrade in here. By default, the range of this controller doesn't actually reach where our drawers are at. But if we open this up and we shift right click, we can then put a diamond upgrade in here for the range. And now the range should be just enough to detect these. And it goes even further with the netherite upgrade. And so I can now start to link all of these to the network. Oh, this is so nice. And I better not forget to lock all of my drawers. Now on the mega exporter, notice how many slots we have. This is what we need. We need a ton of slots, and this thing really is going to help with that, which is going to allow us to put like iron and all of our individual tools and what have you, all different kind of resources in here. And then our drawers are going to limit how many of those resources can actually go into the storage. Now, to be able to access this storage, this is where we're going to need to drag a pipe down here and also connect into this with our applied energistics. And while this isn't the most pretty thing in the world, it will work. And this is going to be an ME storage bus that is going to go on here. Now, another thing I am also going to need before we actually start getting into patterns and terminals and everything, now that I have these set up, is, well, some sort of buffer storage. So I have myself an ME disk drive here, and this is going to give me some regular storage on top of the items that we're going to be constantly receiving, because we need somewhere for them to go, like in between processes. So I'm going to make something that's pretty cursed. This is going to be a 64K ME disk drive from AE2 Things, but this is not your typical AE disk drive. No. This works just like refined storage, as in it holds exactly 64,000 items, and it does not care about the individual item typing that you have to normally deal with applied energistics. So I am going to take this, and I should be able to put this in here. And now we should have access. If I open up my crafting terminal here, I should be able to put items in, and then we should be able to see that this now has used 46 of the total 64,000 bytes, because 1 byte equals 1 item. And normally we have to deal with an item typing amount and limit, but not with these. These, we just simply, one item equals a byte, no matter its durability or what have you. So let's talk about our cables real quick. I want to go ahead and actually put them in the floor here. So I do want to facade them. This is one nice thing about Applied Energistics is you can facade and make things look very, very nice, just like that. So now they're in the floor, they're now off the roof, and then we now have our storage set up and at least some sort of storage buffer. So what is the next step? The next step is to, before Autocrafting, we probably need to make all of the tools that we're going to use inside of Gregtech. And there's actually a massive list of these. So if we go into the Gregtech chapter under the getting started, this is like a list of tools. So we have a hammer here, and then we have these wrench, and then we need the GT files, whatever these are. We need regular files. And then we're also going to need some of these saws, like at least one version of them. I don't think there's a lot of them we probably can't make, but it really doesn't matter. I don't think the types. And then look at all this. So then we just have all kinds of crazy stuff like Gregtech scythes, knives, all of these things. I've got to craft all of them in some sort of version and then make them absolutely unbreakable. Now, thankfully, a lot of these individual tools aren't that bad to make. For example, the hammer, not too bad. And same thing with the iron wrench. Like, this is honestly not too bad as well. However, it does require our iron hammer in order to make this, just like that. And even making an iron file is pretty straightforward. Making ourselves the iron saw, I see. This is going to require some of our other tools that we have in our arsenal, right? It's going to require a hammer. I have them backwards, right? So a hammer and this, there we go. That makes a saw. And then we have this whole lot of things. Oh boy. Now the rabbit hole begins. And this is why I actually want to get into Applied Energistics, because crafting these things would be a lot easier if I was doing it in there. For example, if I was to craft this, it's not going to automatically pull the tools that even though I already have them in my inventory, it's not going to pull them in. I have to manually do this, which can be kind of tedious. For example, to get all of these ingredients, I have to kind of hand do all of them for each individual one. And so it's going to be a little bit easier now that we have Applied Energistics, but I still want to get these base tools crafted and ready to go. So I now have all of the tools crafted for the most part, aside from the plunger. We actually cannot craft the plunger just yet. That does require a little bit of the steam era because we are going to need rubber sheets. And to do this, we do need an alloy smelter and all that fun stuff. So what are we going to do with all of these tools now that we have them? Well, this is where we're going to actually make them unbreakable. So I have a ton of Stellas, and this is the whole plan, is to use Stellas to make these unbreakable. And then we are going to use them for crafting. And I did test, and it still doesn't use durability once these are eternalized. So all we need is some smithing templates, and then we just put the tool in with the Stella, and we will get out an eternal version of this. Now, it still shows durability, but it shouldn't use any of its durability for crafts. For example, the hammer is probably one of the best things to show. It's just automatically repairing, just like you've seen there. If we take it into our crafter and we, for example, use it in some sort of craft, I believe this can be used with like two different types of iron. Like, so if we take iron in here and I make some sheets with this, right? This should use some durability like you see right here. Oh, wait, no. Oh, this is using durability. It should not be using durability. When I tested this originally, it was not, unless they made some sort of change. And so now it's only going to repair when it's back in your inventory? No, it's not even repairing back in my inventory. Oh no. I see where I went wrong. I thought that these would be unbreakable because when I tested, I originally tested on this hammer from Immersive Engineering, and this does work very well, right? I can just basically infinitely craft using this eternal hammer, and it doesn't take any durability. But these, however, do take durability, which means that we are going to have to set up auto crafting patterns to auto request the tools as needed. Later on, we'll get better tools that makes way more sense, but we do have infinite amounts of these resources. So we're just going to have to make sure that we have these in stock for all of these individual crafting components, which honestly isn't a lot. It seems like just iron plates, iron rods, which can be crafted quite easily. And if we can just bring in iron, we can actually use this eternal hammer to craft most of our iron plates for these processes. So without further ado, let's put this to the test. Let's go ahead and take our iron and take our eternal engineering hammer, and let's go ahead and set an iron, for example, to go in this slot. And then because it's locked, we can go ahead and pull it out, and we can say, hey, make sure that you go ahead and extract iron and keep it in stock over here. 512, that is perfect. And we should be able to access that right over here. So I'll go into my pattern terminal. We can see we have 512 ready to go. So what I want to do is I want to put my hammer in here. Now this is going to not go into the drawer storage. It's instead going to go into our storage right here. So there should be one item in there, and that is that. So when I build out a pattern, we should be able to use this in a way that makes those plates. So I can go ahead and set this up to a crafting pattern, and I will say this hammer and one iron should equal a plate. And if we set this to substitutions enabled, I believe this will work with MBT data. And I've used this in the past, for example, crafting recipes, like for example, with this hammer. And then whenever it ran out, it would just automatically recraft a new hammer to then complete the rest of the projects. So in this case, we now have a 1-to-1 iron plate recipe. And all I have to do is put the recipe inside of this cube by hand by accessing this, or I can go ahead and access it through a pattern access terminal, which makes it a lot easier to access them. And I can just put it in here. And so I should now be able to craft, for example, like 10 of these. And we're going to notice they're crafting and they're utilizing the hammer. Oh, and it doesn't take any durability damage. That's what I was hoping was happening with these, but it's definitely not the case. All right, I know this is getting kind of confusing, and I am sorry if it is, but this is technically a way that you can get into Applied Energistics if you do have refined storage. Also, notice the reason why I went into refined storage, because this can get really complicated. Now, I believe with just these few items that we have right here, we should be able to set up autocrafts that can autocraft all of these individual tools upon demand. Now, here's the thing. When I go to craft these tools, it's going to be kind of wonky. I went ahead and remade another iron tool that wasn't going to be the eternal version. Just so whenever we craft these patterns, it's going to pull from our inventory. Now, I am going to allow for substitutions on this, and that is going to be kind of necessary, as when these start to take durability from crafting the tools, well, then it's going to need to ignore that MBT data that's on that tool. And so hopefully we should be able to get patterns that are working. So for example, I just crafted that pattern that uses this, but if I make the saw, that's going to use, it's going to end up using these tools here, which is going to be an iron file and an iron hammer, and so on and so forth. And you can see, by the way, the items that we have crafting recipes for, judging by those little pluses that you see right here. So perfect. I think I now have all of the individual patterns, and I can start to place them in. Now, I have been told that it is recommended to place these recipes down in here vertically because of the way that the stacks are set. And that will make sure that you're utilizing your crafters efficiently. And I 100% think that that is true. So I am going to have these all placed in here on their individual lines, making sure they're utilizing individual crafters whenever we go to get this going. Now, I know I haven't touched on it much yet, but we are going to need these tools for auto crafting machinery. So making sure that we can craft up different machines whenever we start to move into the industrial age is 100% why we need all of those individual components. So as we start to move through the progression of Gregtech, we are going to need all of those things. And well, one of the first things we need to get started with Gregtech is going to be bronze and making bronze plates. And as you can see, we can either use these hammers right here, which we could autocraft as well, or we can go ahead and use the Gregtech hammers. I think this would be the best example of sort of showcasing that we can craft more of these plates than this has durability. So like if we find how much the iron has, those things like 128 or whatever it is, we can realize whenever we craft more plates than that, we can actually see it roll over. I think that's going to be a good idea. So let's go ahead and get some bronze, which I do have automatically ready to go. I already have essence for this. So let's get bronze sent over into our system. And again, the easiest way to do that is we're just going to place the item we need, and then we're just going to tell our exporter to make sure to send it. And then if it has a crafting recipe, it's going to automatically craft it when it starts to send it in here. So let's go ahead and build our recipe out. So we're going to make sure that that substitution enabled is on. This is very important for this. And we are going to go ahead and get our recipe going. So if I open this up, I should be able to set this as a bookmark, which is going to make that a lot easier to access. And then I will set up the Autocraft, which will use the things that we have in our inventory inside of our storage. And it's going to pull that in. And there is our bronze plate. And we can go ahead and set up a crafting recipe for this. And we should, hopefully, this should work. If not, this is going to be frustrating. But this has 128 crafting uses. So what it should do whenever we do request this craft, if we do more than 128, which we can, we do like 140, it should tell us that, hey, it is going to craft up another hammer to complete this operation. And it does, as you can see right here, and it's going to show you the items it needed to craft that hammer. And when we get this going, it is just going to work. And this is why I switched over to Applied Energistics specifically for this task. Oh yeah, and not to mention that this can also craft things in the smithing table, and it can also craft patterns inside of the stone cutter as well. And so with that, I think that is enough for today. That is quite a bit to sort of sink my teeth into. And the Applied Energistics has now been set up. All of my infrastructure is basically ready to go. Now we just need to worry about carrying our signals and our channels everywhere. And that's going to be a lot easier than you think, because we do actually have access to wireless network sending through extended AE as well. I know I keep zooming in over and over again, but guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hopefully this was an insightful video on the Applied Energistics in All the Mods 9, and also how to integrate it and get it working with Gregtech items. Well, guys, if you did enjoy, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and also give this video a huge thumbs up, as that just lets me know that you guys are enjoying these videos. And also comment down below, what would you like to see me kind of cover in this mod pack, because there's a lot more to do outside of just what we're working on right now, and I would love to do that. And well, without further ado, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. That amazing thanks is going to go out to Deuce42. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. My goodness, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. Bye.